Here's to you. My name is John Wesley Riggs. I was born April 12th, 1977 in Memorial Hospital in Yakima, Washington. Today's my birthday. I'm turning 40 years old. Can you believe it? Have you did that? Have you heard of that before when people are like, oh, I'm turning 40 today? Turning? You are 40 today. I was born on a Tuesday. About 2:30 or something like that, according to my birth certificate. Yeah, I turned 40 years old today. Can you believe it? I was born in 1977. Not a bad year. The year Star Wars Episode 4 came out in theaters. According to my mom, who's a huge science fiction fan, I was there. She said I was there as a baby sleeping, but I was still there in theaters that year. I don't remember it, of course. And also the year the Atari 2600 came out. That's not a bad year at all. 1977, I'll take it. 40 years old, if you can believe that. I wanted to share with you 40 games, 1 year for one game for each year I've been alive. Bear with me. I was going to show fancy graphics and gameplay footage and all that, but it's literally, I mean, of course it's the day before right now. It's not live. It's 9 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. So here in about 3 hours, less than 3 hours, I'll be 40 years old. In the meantime, put that all aside. Oh, transparency. Yeah, you know. So 40 games for 40 years. My goodness. 4 decades of gaming. Can you believe it? By all means. The Atari 2600 came out 1977. Let's start with that. My favorite game for 1977, Combat. Loved Combat. Tanks with the ricochet shots. I loved playing the silly giant airplane versus the 2 or 3 smaller jets. I'm a huge fan of Combat. I'll play it today right now. 1978. Space Invaders was still one of my favorite games of all time. I'll play Space Invaders right now. In fact, all of these games I'll play right now. Space Invaders was the game that taught me, for shmups, not to shoot where the enemy is, but to shoot where the enemy is going to be. And Space Invaders taught me a whole lot about that. In fact, I was just playing Space Invaders. I was at round 1 in Tukwila over the weekend, and I was playing the kind of an arcade Space Invaders shooter kind of thing, which was kind of fun. So, very cool. 1979, I love the game Adventure. It's what got me hooked on like games like Zelda and all that. Adventure, you play as a square, you grab an arrow for a sword, the ducks are dragons, you know? And I loved playing difficulty 3 and just exploring and seeing what was out there. And I remember playing the game and like just seeing where the bridge would take me. I'd take the bridge, which would make it so you can travel through walls, basically, or over walls, but, you know, use your imagination. Just to see what I could do with it and see where I could go with it, too. So Adventure, for sure, 1970. 1980 belongs to Berzerk. I loved Berzerk in the arcade. Played it for the Atari as well. I have it for that, too. The evil Mr. Otto or whatever, just this creepy, smiley, have a nice day face, which probably not the reason I like have a nice day faces today. We'll see. But Berzerk couldn't touch the walls. I'm a huge fan of that game. 1980 went to Berzerk. 1981, it's all about Donkey Kong. I loved it back then. Love it today. I'm probably better at it then than I am now. But I did play me a lot of Donkey Kong in the arcade. And Donkey Kong in the arcade is the first video game I remember playing for arcade at home anywhere. Donkey Kong was the first game I remember playing. I know I played games before that, but I have my earliest video game memory is playing Donkey Kong in the arcade. It was the second cabinet in the back room of Jolly Joker, which was an arcade at the Yakima Mall when I was growing up. 1982, it's all about Dig Dug. It was the first game. Dig Dug was the first game I drew a crowd playing. They had a Dig Dug arcade cabinet. There was a youth center as part of the YMCA in town, and my brother and I would go there every once in a while just to kind of hang out. He was into breakdancing because it was 1982. So we'd go there and he would show off his dance moves or something. I don't know. I didn't really pay attention. And I would just kind of be there as the younger brother where, you know, my older brother was taking me around. It's like, oh, here's my younger brother, John, you know, whatever. And I remember playing it. And I was doing really, really well at it. And I forgot what level I was on. At like 20 or 25 or something. And I heard someone sneeze behind me or cough behind me. So I turned around and there was like 10 people watching me. And I'm like, you're weird. You're just going to stand there and watch me play a video game when you can just play in your own video game? Of course, you look at Twitch now, you know, stuff like that. It's like, it was the precursor to that. People like watching other people play video games, I guess. 1983, it's kind of a weird one, but I loved Crystal Castles. I hated the fact that I had to use a trackball. I'm not very good at trackballs. I always felt like my thing with trackballs is I was always for sure that I was going to get my fingers pinched in the trackball by rolling it, you know, with my finger in it kind of thing. Never happened, but I'm a huge fan of Crystal Castles, so that was my 1983 game. 1984 is Karate Champ. I just thought it was innovative that you use two joysticks to do different maneuvers, and you can just kind of like do some random combinations, and sure enough, it would do something. I always tried to jump over them and then kick them in the back of the head for that full point, and that was kind of my technique. I tried to do that whenever I could. 1985, getting into like the fantasy type, new graphics, new generation of stuff, and Space Harrier blew my mind. I loved the element to it. I was a huge fan of a never-ending story, and the fact that the bonus stage is basically writing Falcor for Space Harrier. That was okay with me. 1986, of course, Legend of Zelda. Something about Legend of Zelda, man, just drew me in. And then on top of that, 1987 was Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link. And when people ask me what's my favorite video game of all time, it changes every day, but my go-to is Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link. It is my favorite video game of all time. A lot of memories with that game. And that's right when I started really getting into Nintendo at the time, too. Like, I kind of had a Nintendo. Like, we had one, but it was kind of broken. And it was in my brother's room, so I didn't really touch it. I mean, I had more Atari games. I had a ton of Atari games at the time. But we only had, like, for the Nintendo, we had Donkey Kong Classics, Burger Time, and something else, like Balloon Fight, I think. It was something else. And that's all we had for the Nintendo for, like, 6 months. So I was like, oh, that's fun. But look at all these Atari games, man. 3 Nintendo games. So it was just another system. But then that's, around the Zelda 2 time was around when I started investing more into Nintendo, and I started finding out I had friends, making friends who had Nintendo games. We could trade games and stuff like that, so I could experiment more. Our local video stores would start carrying Nintendo games to rent. That was a new thing too, so that's where I really got into it. The 1988 was probably, I want to say 1988 was my pinnacle of like, holy geez, Nintendo is my life. I literally have my yearbook from around that time. Where all of the, all of my signatures from my friends and schoolmates were all video game based. Like, oh, you're John the Nintendo Mon, or something stupid like that. And I wore it on my sleeve, and I still did. I didn't realize girls also played Nintendo games until much later in life, but they were out there. They weren't going to tell me about it. 1988 Mega Man 2 was my favorite game for the year. I mean, it was just like, I loved Nintendo Power and all that, and Mega Man 2 was it. Mega Man 2 is still my favorite Mega Man game of all the Mega Man games that are out there. Just that nostalgic feeling. It's the easiest, yes. You can play through it blindfolded, probably. I still remember the password to get to the Wily stages. Which, if you're wondering, it's A1, B2, B4, C1, C5, D1, D3, E3, E5. That'll get you to the end and go from there. I love me some Mega Man 2, I promise. 1989, going on to the Sega Genesis now. Sword of Vermilion is one of my top 5 favorite games of all time. I loved Sword of Vermilion. I loved the music. Loved the story. I wish you walked a little bit faster. I love the fact that I don't like turn-based RPGs. Like my sister loved like Dragon Warrior. And I was like, I don't like the I'll hit you, then you hit me. That wouldn't work in a real life fight. But in Sword of Vermilion, the battle system is like once you run into an enemy, then you fight them like Legend of Zelda. And I'm okay with that. So that was a lot of fun. I loved Sword of Vermilion. Moving on to 1990, another one of my favorite games of all time, ActRaiser. Easily in my top 5 favorite games of all time is ActRaiser. And it's ActRaiser. What can I say? Super Nintendo now. We're on to the Super Nintendo already. 1991, The Legend of the Mystical Ninja was my favorite game for 1991. It was the first game I purchased after buying a Super Nintendo. Super Nintendo came with Mario World. That's all I had for a little while. I'd rent games all the time. And on my birthday, I could get one game on my birthday, one game on Christmas. And I kind of have a list of games that I wanted. And then on this day, for some reason, my mom just took me to the store and just said, pick any 2 games you wanted and stuff, not just one. I was like, oh my god, 2, okay. So, and I rented Mysical Ninja before, so I grabbed that. And it was the right pick, and I'm glad I have it. I still have it too. Oh, the other game, if you're wondering, was Rival Turf. I've never even heard of Rival Turf before I bought it. It was a blind buy, and I'm glad I did, because it was like Final Fight, but 2-player simultaneous, which Final Fight wasn't. 1992 now. I had a Game Boy this time, but 1992, I loved Super Mario Land 2, which is the 6 golden coins. Is one of my... I would say it's in my top 3 favorite Mario games of every Mario game ever made, is Super Mario Land 2 for the Game Boy, and I'll let you think about that for a second. It just is that good, I promise. 1993, that's when we started getting like experimental gaming. It's like We don't really know what's going to happen next with video games. Super Nintendo is still doing great. Genesis is doing great. What's coming out next? And 1993, I'd give it to Haunting, starring Polterguy for the Sega Genesis. Such an innovative game. You're trying to scare a family out of their house, so you as a ghost are inhabiting like the TV and the dartboard and stuff like that, and you have to scare them out of the house. Such a fun game. Haunting, starring Poltergeist, certainly a hidden gem. I consider it a hidden gem, and I certainly encourage picking it up. 1994 is right around this time I picked up a Sega CD at my local record store that also did video game trades. And Panic for the Sega CD was phenomenal. I loved Panic. It was so weird. Heavily Monty Python inspired. You just... it's hard to explain. You hit a button, and the button either takes you to a different room, or it takes you, or it does a wacky animation. Very animation based. It's just so crazy. I loved the game Panic for the Sega CD, and it's one that my kids played. And again, my son with autism does not like video games, doesn't even play Minecraft or anything. He's not interested at all, but he will play Panic because you don't die. You just move on to the next room, or you just hit something. And also, it was the game that taught him how to use a D-pad, believe it or not, because kids today are touch screen based or they're mouse based. But D-pads is a new concept for him. Like a button goes up and a different button goes down. That's weird. But I taught him how to use that. So thank you, Panic, for the Sega CD. I appreciate that. Moving on to 1995, now we're into the Sony PlayStation, and I purchased my PlayStation day 2. I couldn't afford one day 1, almost, but then I got enough money for day 2, so I got my PlayStation on day 2. Took a little bit, but Tekken for the PlayStation was my favorite game for 1995. I'm not a huge Tekken fan, I'll be honest with you, but I love Tekken. That makes sense? No, it doesn't? Okay. When it first came out, I was a huge fan. I like the fact that you could play as a wrestler and do wrestling maneuvers and chain combos and stuff like that. So my friends and I played a lot of Tekken for sure. 1996, going off the list a little bit. 1996, I'm starting to get into import gaming now with my Sega Saturn, and that's when Fire Pro Wrestling S 6-Man Scramble came out for the Sega Saturn. It's a Fire Pro Wrestling game. Features over 600 wrestlers or something like that, and it was the game that got me to buy a multi-tap and more controllers for the Sega Saturn, and I put more hours into that game than I've put into any other game ever, still today. Fire Pro Wrestling S 6-Man Scramble. We played that every night for hours on end, just doing battle royale modes and all that too. It was crazy. 1997 now, I'm still into import gaming, and that's when Castlevania Symphony of the Night came out. Now, I could not wait for the new Castlevania game for the PlayStation 1, to the point where I never purchased Castlevania Symphony of the Night. I purchased Dracula Nocturne of the Moonlight, because I didn't want to wait 6 months or whatever it was for the American version that came out. I ordered the Japanese version basically day 1. I think it was like day 3 or 4 or something like that, and I'm not disappointed that I did. And I beat the game before it came out in America. I did end up purchasing I did end up buying it on the PSN, on the PlayStation Network for my PS3, just to play it again. But the version I have is the Japanese import, and it's easy to play, without translation, and I was able to do it just fine. 1998 into Nintendo 64, and that's when I have Zelda Ocarina of Time. I know it's kind of a lot of people's go-to favorite Zelda game of all time. It is one of my favorite Zelda games of all time, but I really do love it. I think it's a great game, and I know the hype is there, and I'm okay with that. Usually I try to stay away from hype. It's like, oh my god, Final Fantasy VII. I'm like, it's good, but it's not the greatest. So Zelda Ocarina of Time goes to 98, and then 1999, that's when Silent Hill came out, and I loved Silent Hill. I like Silent Hill more than I like Resident Evil. There's a few people that agree with this, and if you disagree, that's fine too. I'd like to hear about it in the comments. I'm glad I finally played the Silent Hill arcade game at round 1 over the weekend. Kinsey and I were playing that game. We had a lot of fun with that. But Silent Hill was the first game that legitimately freaked me out with the music near the end of the game. Like, I was literally feet off of the floor because I used to play video games sitting on the edge of my bed. And I was like, I'm going to pick my feet up off the floor because I don't want something grabbing me from underneath the bed. It was that serious. I was 22 years old when that game came out. Let's see, how old was I? 1999. I was born in 1977. So yeah, it must have been like 21, 22 or something like that when that game came out. so, so there's that. I forgot how old I was. I was something anyway. Okay, 2000. Hey, we made it to the year 2000. WWF No Mercy. Now, of course, I say Virtual Pro Wrestling 2 is my favorite wrestling game. And I like it more than WWF No Mercy. However, WWF No Mercy is fantastic, and we played a ton of that game. Love WWF No Mercy. 2001. Now is when the Xbox came out. I'm not a huge Xbox fan, I'll be honest with you. I like it. I preferred GameCube more. Not just because I'm a Nintendo fanboy, which I admittedly kind of am, but all the games I wanted on Xbox were also on PlayStation 2, except for Halo. So for 2001, I'm going to give it to Halo, because I played a lot of Halo. I played mostly the one-player mode, but that was the game where people were like, oh my god, you have an Xbox? Do you have Halo? You have Halo? I'm coming over. We're going to play some multiplayer. It's like, okay, I guess. I don't know. That was like people really about that, man. They were all about it. And I think it's a fun game. And I picked up the, the Xbox One Halo Super Pack or whatever, so that's fine. I don't mind that. Now, 2002, I want to give it to Phoenix Wright, Justice for All. Now, Phoenix Wright Justice for All is not the first Justice Wright. Phoenix Wright Justice for All is not the first Phoenix Wright game for the DS. However, it was the first one I played. And when I played it, and it was like somebody told me, like I saw pictures of it and stuff like that, I'm like, whatever. It didn't look interesting to me. And then somebody had the manager of Game Crazy, back when we had Game Crazies inside Hollywood Video, he knew who I was. So the manager of Game Crazy was like, oh, hey, have you played Phoenix Wright? You should check it out. So he popped it in the system and he handed it to me. And I played it for about 2 minutes. And I was like, I'll buy it. And I did. And I loved it. And then I went back and I picked up the other two games. Like I picked up the first one, Ace Attorney, and then later on I picked up the Trials and Tribulations as well. And that was the one that kicked me off on how awesome the Phoenix Wright games are. And it's funny, I have those three, and I play them all through, and then by the time I'm done, and I play them all through before I go to bed. That's my nighttime ritual, is usually playing that game for a little bit. And I go to bed really, really quickly, so it's either... Sometimes I play it for about 5 minutes. Sometimes I play it for 10 minutes. Sometimes I'm playing it for 30 seconds and I conk out and fall asleep and I drop the DS on the floor and then lose my save game or something like that. So, but by the time I'm done playing them, then I go back and play them again, and it's basically a new game where it's like, I kind of remember what's going on, but I don't really remember. So, I'm a huge fan of the Phoenix Wright games, so there you go. 2003 was such an awkward year for video games. I mean, there were some good games that were out there, but I still... I didn't really play a lot of like the AAA titles, but 2003 was the year that Beyond Good and Evil came out, and I remember, I could play it again now for the first time. I haven't played it since it came out, but I remember I loved playing Beyond Good and Evil. There's something about it, I don't know if it was the story or just how it played, or I don't remember. I'll be honest with you. It was that long ago. It was 2003. But when I was looking through a list of like what games came out in each year, I was like, that's it right there. I'm going to have to play it again. I don't remember why I loved that game so much. I'm going to remind myself why I did after I play it again. 2004, we got to talk about Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater is my favorite Metal Gear game of all time. And I loved Metal Gear for the Nintendo Entertainment System. I liked Metal Gear Solid. I loved Metal Gear Solid, don't get me wrong. I liked Twin Snakes. I liked the second one. I didn't want to play as Raiden, but whatever. But there's something about Metal Gear Solid 3 that was like, holy moly, this is insanely good. And just like the creativity of like the bosses, where it's like you can either, if you kill them with a tranquilizer. I don't like killing people in video games, so a tranquilizer is perfect for me. You get their camo and stuff like that. I loved Snake Eater, and such a great game. 2005. Now, me, who was born in 1977, shouldn't have a favorite game of all time in my top 5 that came out in 2005, but I do, and it's Shadow of the Colossus. If you haven't played Shadow of the Colossus yet, that is the game where if anybody ever says, and I'll be honest with you, I've never heard anyone say this, but people have apparently, but if anyone ever says, video games aren't art, you show them Shadow of the Colossus, and that will shut their face in 2 seconds. I love Shadow of the Colossus. Such a great game. I can go on and on about that, but I'll move on. 2006, we got to talk about Elder Scrolls Oblivion. I've never played an Elder Scrolls game before this. I'm not a computer gamer. I'm not a PC gamer. I'm a console gamer. So I'm not familiar with that. But when I picked up my PlayStation 3, I was like, this looks pretty cool. I'll check it out. It looks like a, first person RPG-ish kind of game, and it's so good. I literally am still playing it today. Like like I just started a new game for the third or fourth time or however long, about 2 or 3 weeks ago as a new character to play through the game again. I think it's that good. I like Oblivion more than Skyrim, although Skyrim does make an appearance on this list. I'll get to that eventually. 2007, let's talk about Super Mario Galaxy. I loved Super Mario Galaxy. I just loved everything about it. That's Super Mario Galaxy. 2008 goes to Fallout 3. Fallout 3, it took me a while to get into because people kept saying, "Oh, it's Oblivion with guns. You like Oblivion?" And I loved Oblivion. You like Oblivion? It's like Oblivion with guns. And I was like, I don't want to play Oblivion with guns. I want to play Oblivion. But when I picked up Fallout 3 and they showed me the like where you can like freeze time and like aim for the head and stuff like that, I was like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. So Fallout 3, you know what's funny? I don't have a copy of Fallout 3 anymore. Fallout 3 crashed my PlayStation 3. So when it crashed my PlayStation 3, I traded it in. I sent it back to the Sony to get it fixed. Because once my PlayStation 3 crashed, I traded off for trade-in value all the games I had, including Fallout 3. And Fallout 3 was one game I never ended up getting back. And I want to play it again so bad. So I'll probably be looking out for Fallout 3 here at a convention in the near future. I'm sure it's like $5 or something like that. 2009. 2009 now, we're at... I looked at the list and I was like, I didn't really play a lot of these games. 2009 is when I started getting back into retro gaming. Back when I started calling it retro gaming, I was like, there's not a word for it. I just like playing old Super Nintendo and Nintendo games, so I was playing more of that than newer games. But I did pick up Punch-Out for the Wii. So for 2009, let's call it Punch-Out for the Wii. I enjoyed that one. Now, 2010, I gotta talk about Red Dead Redemption. Here's the deal. I didn't play Red Dead Redemption until last year for the first time. And I kick myself for waiting this long. It came out in 2010, so I'm giving 2010 to Red Dead Redemption. I like Grand Theft Auto, but I'm not a huge fanatic about it. I stop at red lights in that game. I don't do all the fun things that you should be doing in that game. I don't play the game seriously. So I was like, Red Dead Redemption, it's like a Wild West game, I don't know. But when I finally did play it, I was engrossed. I was in the game, if you will. So, love that one. 2011, got to talk about Portal 2. Portal 2 is my favorite game for 2011. Love that game. Love playing through it again. Love everything about Portal 2. Portal 1 is great too, but Portal 2 is just hilarious, man. 2012 now. 2012, this is going to be an odd one. This is going to be a weird one. Are you ready? You ready? Xbox 360. Now, I didn't get an Xbox 360 until about 2012 or so. I didn't get one until way late in the game. Because I didn't need one. I had a PlayStation 3. I didn't even want an Xbox 360. I got an Xbox 360 for Father's Day. I'm not going to turn it... It was when the Kinect first came out. That's the reason why I bought one, or that's the reason I got one for my Father's Day, was because I had a Kinect, so the kids would love it. Great. So 2012, the game we played the most, or my kids played the most, was the Double... And I have to read it over here to make sure I got it right. Double Fine Happy Action Theater. Double Fine Happy Action Theater. It's the game with a Kinect that puts you in the movie. So it's like, oh, you're there with the lava, or oh, you're throwing snowballs by... it was just a fun game. We loved it. So watch out for that one for the Xbox 360. 2013, let's go with The Last of Us. There's a lot of great games for 2013. But I'm only going to do one per game, and I'm not going to do the thing where everyone else does it. We're like, I can't choose one game, so I'm going to choose these 5 games. No, I'm choosing one game. I'm not going to mention the other games. 2013, The Last of Us. Loved it. I would love to see a live-action movie of it. Looking forward to the sequel. Looking forward to it for sure. 2014, PlayStation 4 is out now, and that's when I picked up Shadow of Mordor. Now, here's the thing about me and the Lord of the Rings, the Hobbit, Tolkien universe. I like it. I'm not a huge fan. It's the same way I am with Star Wars. I like it, but I'm not a fanatic about it. I'm not religious about it. But I did like Shadow of Mordor. I thought it was fun. I thought it was a great game. And I really enjoy the films. I really enjoy the books and all that. But Shadow of Mordor, super, super fun game. I had a lot of fun with that going. I never beat it. I got as far as opening up the other continent or something like that. But that's a great game too. 2015, of all games, was a game I I was gifted, full disclosure, I was gifted for review, and it was a game called Dying Light, which was like zombies, but it was a cool way of doing zombies. It wasn't like Resident Evil zombies. It was like zombies were everywhere, and holy moly, you are an idiot if you try to kill them all. Like, you just have to run past them and stuff like that. So I had a lot of fun with Dying Light. I still have it loaded up. I still play it every once in a while just for fun. But yeah, Dying Light, man, that's one of those games. Okay, 2016. This was just last year. To me, the game of the year, without a doubt, was Pokemon Go, of all things. It was the game that got me out of the house. It was the game that got me to walk around the neighborhood. It was the game that actually, you know, our family, my wife and I and our 3 kids, we loaded up the car. We drove to Seattle. We literally drove 2.5 hours out of our way to play a video game on a mobile app in another location. That's how big that game was. Free to download. We probably, my wife keeps buying more Pokeballs, so we probably sunk in $100-$200, something like that, just into getting like items and stuff like that. And I'm okay with that because Pokemon Go, man, we would go to the park, like the park in Belleville, Washington. We would go there, and there would just be a swarm of people, 200, 300 people, just hanging out, playing this game, talking to strangers and all that. What other game does that ever? It's insane. So I have to give it to Pokemon Go, man, for sure. I don't play it anymore. I still have it on my phone. I haven't played it since like the update or something like that. But my wife checks it out every once in a while, and I'm still part of the Pokemon Go local group. So there's that. And now here we are right now, 2017. Finally, holy moly! About half an hour later, 2017. Not a whole lot of games that I've played so far that came out this year. I'm still looking forward to playing like Horizon Zero Dawn. I'm looking forward to playing, I'm looking forward to playing a lot of games. So for 2017, even though it's boring and unrewarding, I'm going to have to give it to Zelda Breath of the Wild because I can't argue the sheer volume of exploration in that game. I haven't picked it up in a couple of weeks. I've sunk not as much time as most. I haven't beat it yet. I've sunk about 30, 35 hours in it so far. I've beaten one of the Divine Beasts. And I finally opened up all of the map. So I have that. That's as far as I've gotten so far. I have I think I have like one extra outfit. I don't have the thing that makes it so I can actually, tolerate cold weather. But I'm still having fun with it. And there's more games yet to come out this year. But that's my 40. If you missed out on the list, I'm going to list it in the description below for each year of what I chose. And I want to hear from you. What are your favorite games? Maybe to let me know what was your favorite game the year you were born. Maybe look up, what video games were released the year you were born. Let me know in the comments. I'm curious about that because I played a lot of Mario, Zelda games too, being a fanboy. But I missed out on so much too because I was so involved with imports or even downloading games. So to this day, I've never played a Tomb Raider game. And when I say I've never played it, I mean I've never played through it. I've played it for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, but I've never played a Tomb Raider. I've never played an Uncharted. I've never played a Mass Effect. There is a ton of great games out there that I still haven't even touched. 40 years of video gaming. That's a whole lot of games. I'd rather play the hidden gems. I'd rather play the imports. But a lot of games out there for sure. So let me know about the year you were born. Again, 40 years old today. I thank you. And thank you for the happy birthdays already. I'm getting those on Twitter and Facebook and stuff like that. On Instagram, a couple of those. So and it's not even my birthday yet. I mean, it's literally still a couple hours away. So here's to you. And here's to 40 more years of video games. You never know what's going to come out next. Thank you for watching.